right. All right, we'll start the business session. Board of Education report. Oh, student representatives?
There is none, but I will do a little student recognition. We did have our first varsity fall sporting event on Friday. And our football team ended up on the wrong side of the scoreboard, but it was 20-14, I believe was the final. And it was actually, it sounds like it was a fairly close game for the most part. So I'm going to say I'm really kind of proud that the team performed the way they did. They started out with 18 students in football on Friday, and they did end with 17, unfortunately. And we won't talk about who or what, but they did. Unfortunately, did have somebody who was injured. But with that, though, we also had our start to volleyball, not a varsity contest, but they did have a scrimmage on Saturday as well here at Port Edwards. So our students got a couple weeks before school, and they're already active. So just in terms of student recognition, I wanted to toss that out to you. So,
Who did we play football?
Johnson Creek.
Johnson Creek.
It's a long ways away.
Yeah. All right, President's report. All board members are in attendance. And our next board meeting is September 12th. Do you want to set October meeting? That would be...
Do that at the end.
Okay.
So.
All right, administrative report.
I do want to talk just for a moment about our athletic conference. The WIAA did approve the CWC realignment, and so starting with the 17-18 school year, Pittsville, Wisconsin Valley Lutheran, and Northland Lutheran will all now be members of the CWC Athletic Conference. We are at this time trying to establish how the new conference alignment will look for our conference. As you know, we have a CWC 10, which is part of the CWC we are competitive with, and the CWC 8. All of that is going to have to be realigned and changed. Our hope is for us, we remain competitive. In fact, maybe gain some competitiveness in some ways, that we're able to fill our schedules and maybe shorten some of our drives. One of the things that's being bantered back and forth within the conference is, so right now we have 2 divisions in the conference, possibly for some sports having 3. If we have 3 divisions, what we're hoping for is that we're able to cross over between divisions for like non-conference scheduling. So we'd still maintain relationships with a lot of the schools we have relationships now with. And hopefully this will help us out in the future. I know it's going to help us out because this past year we were at the point of our football conference. The football part of the conference was at the point of if we lose a team, not being playoff eligible then because our conference isn't big enough. So we had some issues there that this new alignment will hopefully resolve. The other piece I just want to mention briefly is a little bit on in-service and back to school night. We are in the midst of getting everybody in the door this week. Our new staff will be in the door on Wednesday for in-service, and everybody else will be back next Monday. We're doing in-servicing on Monday specifically regarding our crisis plan. As the board last spring adopted some new pieces to the crisis plan. So we'll have specific training on that. Of course, if you're able to, certainly join us. I'm not sure if there are any board members able to join us on Monday morning. We have our breakfast and welcomes and introductions. If If there's going to be more than 2 of you there, though, we probably need to just post that somewhere so people know that it's not a business session, that it's just
time?
simply a welcome and introduction to the school district. But
7:45.
7:45 is the breakfast time. 8 o'clock we do introductions, and then back to school night is Tuesday, August 30th. The elementary staff will be hosting back to school night starting at 3:45 until 6 p.m. And the middle school, high school staff from 5:45 to 8 p.m. So,
That's on Wednesday.
and that's actually on
Tuesday.
Tuesday is back to school night. Yeah. We did it on Tuesday versus Wednesday, since Wednesday everybody's gonna have to turn around and be right back here on Thursday. So for kids, so we wanted to just make that a little, give there to be a day in case there were school supplies yet and other things that needed to get solved and resolved. That's why we did that way. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time on that first Monday, though, looking through the new crisis plan and those pieces. So,
I can be there on Monday
Okay.
in service.
anybody else? Leo?
I can too.
I have a 10 o'clock meeting, but so I won't stay
Yeah,
the
I
whole
mean,
time. but,
yep. Yeah, and we just, we'll do introductions, introduce the new staff, introduce administration, board members, who's ever there, if you want to take a minute or two.
That will
sure
be
you're
here?
welcome. Yes, it will be here.
Okay,
So,
7:45 on Monday, the 29th.
9th.
29th. Very good.
Okay.
If anybody else decides to show up, you have to tell us by Friday. So we can post it.
All right. Report on new staff, students. Kara.
We've been getting new kids every day, so we've had some leave too, but for the most part, every class section has increased. We are up to 30 kindergartners. We went down to 28, then we went to 31. Today we're at 30. Who knows what we'll be at tomorrow? We're up to 28 first graders right now with one section. So we'll see how that goes. And again, we don't know. Last year we had kids the day of school enroll, or the day of school we call and, oh, we moved. So, things could change. We have 31 second graders right now, 2 sections, 37 third graders, 1 section of 27 fourth graders, and 1 section of 30 fifth graders. So our numbers are definitely increasing. We have had at least every day someone either inquire or bring in paperwork to either open enroll or people that have moved into the district. Our incoming 7th graders, that we were originally at one point at 14 kids in that class. We are now up to 22. So that's a really positive thing for that class who they could have used a few more kids. So, and our 6th grade is at 31. So yeah, growing slowly but surely, and like I said, those numbers will waver by 1 or 2 between now and the first day of school or the first week of school, but looking good so far for that. So, and our new staff is they're in here every day. Our new 4K in kindergarten and 2nd and 3rd grade teacher, and so we have a lot of new staff who are excited and have been in here.
How many total do we have?
Just want teachers?
Yeah.
Well,
7.
7.
And we do have a long-term substitute as well for a staff member who's out on a family medical.
Right. That's a lot.
And that doesn't include
Support staff.
the nurse, the
So there's
health
11,
aides.
total new.
Total new
So
hires.
there's,
11
so
new
there's
hires.
4 support staff, 4 new support staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we may need to, and just on the new staff piece, just on a side to that, we may need to look at an 8 increase. I hate to do that, but we may need to, just because of where our new students are coming in at, to be honest.
Right.
So, and we'll play that. We'll have to see where that goes. We're not sure exactly where all those numbers are at. It is a much different world than it was 5 years ago, even in school, trying to figure out school enrollment. It is a whole new beast with the way open enrollment is done now.
and all of those new teachers are automatically on their summary year for observation, so all of them will have to be in their first year, plus the teachers that are normally on their cycle for evaluation. So I think I have pretty much every teacher in this building on there, give or take 2. So it'll be interesting with how that cycle works because then if they stay, all of those teachers will come up on their summary year every 3 years, all at once in one big group. So
High school enrollment has grown a little bit, not quite as much as elementary, which isn't necessarily surprising, because by the time they're in high school, they try to stay where they're at. But we've seen, at least it's stable to what we thought it was going to be, if not going to maybe be a couple more students. So I don't expect we're going to see a huge growth there right at
more
the moment, but
seniors.
hopefully it's going to now work its way through the system, because the elementary is going to be significantly different than where it was a year ago, I think, so, which is a big positive.
I mean,
So-
Any additions to the senior class?
Foreign exchange student that's
Foreign
coming.
exchange
Okay.
student.
we have 2 kindergarten sections and 2 second grade sections, but 1 first grade section.
Yeah, and we're on the cusp. That might be an area we have to, depends where things come out, we might
And then
be
2 third grade sections.
coming to you too.
And then 4th and 5th are
One.
1. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that 28 in first grade is,
I know. I
that's
know.
wonderful, but that's a lot of kids at that level. That's really important. I really,
I wanna
Our biggest struggle is we don't know where that number is really going to settle out until,
After third Friday, then maybe we can make some decisions about that
Yeah.
until we see how many kids there actually end up being.
How many kids are at 4K, do we know?
Yes, and I knew you were going to ask me that because I didn't write it down. I think we are at 28, I believe. 28. I think. Between 28 and 30.
Who is the staff member for that?
Kayla Dorhorst, she has experience at St. Bronze. She was the 4K teacher at St. Bronze in Plover. So, and she was at Building Blocks prior to that. So,
That's an encouraging report. Number 7, questions and comments from people in attendance. There are none signed up. Consent agenda. Are there any gifts?
Yes. We do have a couple gifts. The elementary school received generous donation of school supplies from Phil and Ginny Oliver. They are retired district residents, and so those were delivered to the elementary school. And the exciting gift that we received is the foundation, the Alexander Charitable Foundation, has agreed to donate a check for $9,000 for the replacement of the curtains in the auditorium. And this will be run through the Port Edwards Education Foundation.
that's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Both of you.
Absolutely awesome.
And I also have a budget revision, just so you know that. There was a budget revision for a $400 grant. So that was just to account for that transaction.
we did, and just so that you know, we did already put forward the purchase order on the curtains. I have contacted the company to find out what an install date would be. It is 6 to 8 weeks out is my understanding. They didn't come back with the date yet, but I'm hoping prior to the fall drama production that we have the new curtains in place.
I have a question on the expenditures report.
Yes.
I assume the teachers are aware of their classroom budget ahead of time?
Correct.
What's the procedure if they exceed that limit?
Well,
That's-
we try not to catch it, we try to
Right.
catch it
There-
before they do.
There is one on there that it has, if you probably caught that. And I think part of the reason it is because some of that should have come out of her consumable budget instead of out of her general supply budget.
Yeah.
So, and there are also there's still some, their numbers need to be entered, as you probably noticed as you were looking at that expenditures report. But at the September meeting, that should all be filled in and ready to go.
Okay.
But no, they should, if it does, when I notice that, yeah. A few dollars we can deal
Yeah.
with, but that'll be
All right.
addressed.
No more discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. There's no unfinished business. New business. Consider approval of performance contractor for the energy exemption project.
So we put out a request for qualifications for this year's energy exemption project. If you remember last year, We had two companies bid to provide the energy contract. One was Lockheed Martin, the other, I cannot think of the name of the other company, a year ago. Nexus. And neither company this year put out their request for qualifications. I think part of that has to do with the dollar amount of our project isn't necessarily too great. It's not a big dollar amount, so there's not a lot of room there then. The two companies we received proposals from, you actually have both proposals sitting in front of you. One is H&H Energy. They're out of Madison. The other is Complete Control. They put together proposals for us. Bottom line comes down to the fee for the services, or what we would end up paying for them to guarantee the energy savings piece and do the project. For H&H Energy, that came out to 18%. In their initial request, it lists 12. Problem being, they did not include the labor costs for, they gave us a labor amount per hour, but that's all they gave us. Didn't tell how many, and that's for engineering on the project. That's not the labor of the actual project itself. That's just if they had to do engineering, drawings, spec work, those types of things, management of the project. It was $95 an hour. Luke from CISA 10 asked them to quantify that as a percentage so that we could compare that to apples and apples with Complete Control. Complete Control had it included in their proposal. It ended up being 18% from H&H and 13.5% from Complete Control. Complete Control gave us two options. One was agreed to guaranteed savings, so basically ahead of time we agreed to what we believe the savings are. The other proposal was they would come in over years and measure and verify. Luke, in talking with Luke from CISA 10, his recommendation and mine too, after looking through this, would be that we would award Complete Control this energy savings project with the agreed to guaranteed savings at 13.5%. So their fee would be 13.5. That's a big difference from the 22% we ended up with Lockheed. You remember last year, part of the reason we went with that was when we went with that, we were able to get a $9,000 discount because we'd originally had a proposal or an audit done by CISA 10, and Lockheed agreed to that audit, and so they did not charge us the audit. In fact, that we got a discount from CISA for doing that way. There are no discounts this time, but it is a whole lot cheaper. So basically what it means, if we have a $250,000 that we say we're going to spend, Complete Control gets 13.5% of that to make this project work as an energy project. So I recommend that you, like I said, I'd recommend that you would award that to Complete Control. They're a known vendor to us, and we certainly work with them on many other things and have a fairly good relationship with them at this time.
So move.
Second?
All right. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved. To go with Complete Control. Consider approval of 2016-17 co-curricular positions. A, assistant football coach, Maxwell Ayers. Entertain a motion?
I so move the approval of Max Ayers as assistant football coach.
Second.
Second by Tracy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Second one, middle school volleyball coach, Tim Martin.
I would move acceptance.
Motion by Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, approved. Consider approval of 2016-17 teaching contracts. A, Shane Steltenpool.
I'll also move to that contract.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? second teaching contract, Joni Ducker.
I so move.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Is approved. Consider approval of increase to adult breakfast.
Well, of course, after we had already approved all the prices, we received a USDA requirement that said we need to raise our adult breakfast price. So we're recommending you raise that to $1.70 from the $1.65 that it was.
The other changes up above are
Those
not
were
under.
those were already
Those were already done.
Those were already
Okay.
done. So
Okay.
the update's in red.
Well, you would have seen it in red.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second by Tracy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Consider approval of 2016-17 district handbooks.
The first handbook is the employee handbook, and so really several changes on here have to do with the fact that we are bringing on board our elementary secretary as an 11-month employee. We're changing the nature of that position to fit basically how we've got summer school structured and how we've got the elementary piece structured now. That used to be a 12-month position. So quite a bit of the language that you'll see deals with this basically a new classification of employee at 11 months. For the most part, going to be treated like a 12-month employee with some minor differences in there. Some of the language changes, I know we talked about budgeting. Some of this is editorial more than anything. So who do you see for budget changes, or where do you check in for budget pieces and supplies? And as well, we just cleaned up some of the language in terms of resignation from employment, that we basically looked at this being as if we'd received any requests anytime on January 2nd or after for the current school year, payment of the 2,000 would be submitted. No change in the payment amounts. The security language on page 23 we just cleaned up to indicate what we're currently doing and how the system is currently in place. Staff meetings, again, this is more, we cleaned up the language to practice. This wasn't something that the board had set or done, so we just changed that language to practice. We do hold regular staff meetings, so
Approximately to what schedule? I mean, how often does your teaching staff meet? Approximately? Every other week?
and the high school, middle school staff about once a month.
Not once a month? Okay.
We added some language just that that voluntary payroll deductions also includes now the employee contributions to the individual health savings accounts. The compensation on page 25 is what the board had previously approved so that's just cleaning that language up to match what you'd approved back in July. We are asking for a slight increase of just shy of $3 for the substitute manager and for the open enrollment coordinator. Those are individuals on our staff who get paid per pay period, a set dollar amount to do a specific job. So we're just asking for a slight increase there. Like I said, it's less than $3 per pay period. And that's not per hour, that's per pay period. So the holidays, again, adds the 11-month employee to that. And then the benefits piece, again, just adds this classification of the 11-month employee. Page 28, we just made sure that people understood that sick leave could be taken in half-hour increments. That's essentially what we've been doing. We just wanted to make that clear in there. Personal leave. One of the pieces that I asked Bob Butler for some sample language from WSB on this because personal leave has been a vexing problem because it was very wide open for us. We had no limit on how many staff members could be gone on any given day. It was basically a wide open arena.
Had that been a problem?
It's when we were getting 7 and 8 staff members all trying to take the same day off in May.
Oh, okay.
That becomes a big problem.
Okay.
So
Well,
we
that-
wanted
that's what I
to,
wanted to know.
yeah, we wanted to just not take away the number of days,
Mhm.
but just kind of set some parameters on when. And this, there is, one of the things that's in here is talks about beginning of the semester, end of the semester, and just trying to make sure that people understand we'd expect them to be here to get the semester started and to end the semester. That this shouldn't be used as it's not to extend school vacations and those types of things. Some of that language was in there already, but really we just wanted to kind of clean this up. The other piece was, it was on a 24-hour advance notice previously. So it was basically, we could have had 3 or 4 teachers gone on a given day, and somebody could have walked in the day before and said, oh, I want my personal day tomorrow. We didn't have a lot of room to go, so we just asked for some more notice on that. And of course, we certainly can, the administrators, we have the right to approve, deny, as well as allow for, if we need the exception to the rule for some very good reason.
Okay.
So that, and again, not wanting to take away the days, just kind of hone it in a little bit.
Based on the wording, there has to be a reason given to take the day of personal leave, right?
Yes.
Sounds like that, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't think we're going to be asking them for, I can certainly see somebody saying, I'm buying a house, I need to go, there's only so many hours. We're not looking for all the details of the exact when, the why, the where, just more like, hey, I can only schedule an appointment on X day.
Sure.
Got it, understood. So,
If this has been an issue and you're attempting to remedy that with this new language, which it seems it will, would you make a note to monitor that and report back to us partway through the year, at the end of the year, in terms of whether you think this situation has helped resolve it?
yep.
And if somebody squawks about it, it's just.
Yeah, we can come back and visit that. And like I said, I can already tell you that there's at least one employee I've granted the exception already to for the first week of school for
And that's
a
fine.
reason. And so we're not looking to be punitive with this, just more, we don't have the subs and we don't have we want teachers in the classroom when possible.
Yes.
And again, we're not trying to be punitive, we just want to get some handle on how it's being administered.
Understood. It seems
Yeah.
that this is a reasonable proposal, and hopefully it will help
Yeah.
address that.
This came, I had to go to Mr. Butler in the spring on a request and said, do I have any authority under our current handbook to really deny this the way it's written? And he said, your handbook is really liberal that way. And so he just recommended this as some standard language that they recommend. So.
Right.
The other things, again, going toward that 11-month employee. One item we did change, or asking for a change, is teaching assignments on page 32. And this has to do with study hall. We'd previously compensated that at the hourly substitute rate, which would be just shy of $1,400 a semester. With the new substitute rates, that would just be over that. One of the pieces that we'd heard from teachers had to submit this hourly to us. And so what we're proposing is just make this a stipend and pay it as a stipend. That would probably save Lisa headaches. It would save the teachers the headaches. And we calculated, so this rate of 1,400 is essentially the middle ground as to what we were paying under the old substitute rate and maybe what the new substitute rate comes out to. It's essentially the middle ground. And we made it nice even numbers, a stipend, and that way there's no guessing at that. So compensation for substitutes. I did quite a bit of research on this. Our daily rate of $95 is, it's Nakusa's is 95 currently, Rapids is 106. So we're just looking for a small bump from 95 to $100. The area that's somewhat significant is our long-term substitutes. I went out to find the long-term substitute, where this came about for the teacher who's on long-term leave here, and made an offer to an individual, and there was a very long pause and said, do you know that I was making quite a bit more than that at a neighboring district? And spoke about the neighboring district. I said, well, how much more? Oh, a lot more. I said, really? And so I took it upon myself to investigate that district's wage and our neighbor to the north, their wage in Rapids, along with the wages of, I had some survey information that had already been done by CISA. We were the lowest by far. I believe Rapids was over $190 a day for the long term. Our neighbor to just south of us was about $176. Tri-Counties was, we couldn't even begin to afford theirs. The way their language was, it was basically their starting salary prorated. For us, that would have been well over $200 a day. So what I'm asking is the long-term substitutes, we don't need them often, but when we do need them. So I'm asking just to bring that in line. It doesn't even really bring us up to our two closest neighbors, but it gets us a whole lot closer. So at the 170 rate, brings us a whole lot closer. And then we just ask, get rid of the sliding scale, because that really did us in on the sliding scale piece. We were way out of the ballpark on the sliding scale. We weren't even close. Basically, most of the districts basically say, if you get hired this way, we're going to pay this to you from day one. If you don't get hired that way initially, but that ends up being what it is, a teacher gets sick, we make it retroactive. So, and that's really the big changes. The other last couple of changes are more, again, editorial to what the current practice really is. So, and some of that's based on how basketball games are run these days with how we hire our ticket takers and things. But those are the changes that we're looking for.
I had one question.
Yeah.
Maintenance part-time pay as opposed to maintenance full-time is a little higher.
Yes.
Same with clerical. I think I know the reason, but.
Insurance.
Oh, insurance.
Yep.
Okay.
Insurance and
I was thinking paid holidays.
and they don't
Full-time
get.
gets the
don't
holidays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And to be honest, it's sometimes harder to hire a 4-hour person than it is an 8-hour person.
Any other questions on the employee handbook? Not, I'll seek a motion to approve the employee handbook.
So moved.
Second?
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I'm going to abstain from this vote because my wife was a sub in the district.
Okay, you will abstain. So it's 4-0 passed. And now B, K through 5 student handbook.
Most of this was staffing, changing a lot of things. Other than that, the hot lunch program, those regular changes. The one thing that we changed was the classroom visitation and volunteering. Originally, it said that adult volunteers that were consistently and routinely in the classroom, and I thought that was too vague. If you're working with our kids, you need a background check. So we're striking that out and changing that. We are changing a little bit in our grading and report cards. Last year we started with our midterms. We printed out our quarter report cards. Our midterms, parents would go online. And now that they're used to that, we are putting everything online. We've always had, if you want a printed out copy, if you don't have a printer or internet, we'd be happy to send a printed copy home with your child. Very few requests for that. Most parents just go online and check their child's grades. So we're trying to kind of move away from all those mailers and paper going home with grade reports. So that was another change there. Nursing services were changed, obviously, because of our new health services. Clerical health aide positions, and we just took Anna's name out of some of those things that we just could simply put school nurse from now on, regardless of who the school nurse is.
Any questions?
Who's the secretary here now?
Carly Hoyer.
Okay. Hoyer. Okay, I see that now.
Kurt's daughter.
Kurt's daughter.
Yeah, Kurt's daughter.
And
Yeah.
Ed's
Ed's
granddaughter.
granddaughter.
Hoyer's granddaughter.
Mhm.
Do you want me to check up on her today?
Right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. C, crisis action plan.
The gist of this, you really approved the big changes last year when we changed how we will be reacting to our lockdowns through the ALICE procedures. We're going to be doing some intensive training on that. There are we've done a little bit of changes to our evacuation sites, primarily because one of our evacuation sites was the village garage. And after discussing this with law enforcement quite a bit at length about how we respond to a crisis, there's a couple of things. One, we're sending kids across the state highway to get there. Number two, and this is probably if we genuinely have the true all hands on deck crisis, that is probably going to be a major point of
Pandemonium.
gathering for law enforcement, for medical services, for fire services, and we would be sending our kids in the heart of that area with people potentially coming in and out. So as you can see, we do have we've made changes to those off-site evacuation areas, and we've talked with the people at those facilities, and they were more than happy to help us out with that to make that work. The other changes were really, again, going down to the editorial side of who's doing what, and just adding some people in as they've added roles or changed roles. Again, with Anna Honolig not being the school nurse, and Kathy Guzzi now being the school nurse, and with Jen Moore coming on as a counselor on our staff. Really, those were the changes there. So, and with that, that's really the gist of the changes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. 15, consider approval of 2016-2017 four-year-old kindergarten program agreement.
I'm going to have Kara just speak on where we're at with that.
Yeah, I looked at this last year, and I noticed there were some things I had questions about, and as we went along in the school year, I realized that some of the language in here was all the way back from when 4K was first established in our district. For instance, there was a community collaborative steering committee that met with 4K was originally Rapid School District Nakusa, all kind of jumped in together. There is no community steering committee anymore. So things like that we went through. I met with Tracy Verwink at the Y. She's the program site coordinator, and we sat down and looked through some of these things and changed it to make sure that we're following the 4-year-old kindergarten and daycare compliance rules. For instance, A, it says where student numbers exceed 10, we have a teacher's assistant. We both agreed that if all of a sudden we lost a student, went down to 9, we would not be removing that teacher's assistant. We still need an assistant in that 4K room. If our numbers were to go so low that we would only need one section, then that would be different. But once you have enough kids to have 2 sections, you need a teacher's assistant in for those little kids just because of their needs. So we just took out the number there. We also changed what an outreach program is to more reflect what truly a 4-year-old kindergarten teacher is doing at this time. We also combined our health registration, immunization, and records. At one point, we were having parents fill out like the daycare compliant ones that the Y has, and then they still had to fill ours out for the state. So they really crossed, and it was just too much paperwork for parents to fill out. When they come to back to school night or when they register their child, they fill out all the paperwork with us. We make copies of it, and then the Y has those on hand just to streamline things. The target site enrollment has changed only because that's what the state has said, so we just had to change that number. Obviously, if we got to a number that was large enough to split into 2 sections or more than that, we would definitely do that. The funding part we are putting on hold right now because that is an attachment that we are still waiting to get an itemized bill from the YMCA. They are looking into, instead of just giving us one number per child, I asked to see an itemized list of where those expenses are going. So in the past, that was in the contract. It just was kind of set to the wayside. So I was very curious to see exactly where our dollars that we are paying for those children are going to. So we're working on that with the finance director at the Y. And then the rest of it is just names and email addresses to, reflect the more current staff. And as soon as I have the finances there, we technically don't sign that with them until October after we get our numbers of children. We'll bring that back to another board meeting so that you could take a look at that.
I would move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and that's based on approving everything but the itemized document. Yeah. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Consider approval of transportation contract, Lamers Bus Lines.
Yep, we sat down to look at the numbers for the 16-17 school year. The numbers that were in place was a CPI floor of a 2.8% increase, meaning we were looking at a 2.8% regardless of where CPI was, because we'd already hit the floor. So we certainly sat down and looked at what we could do with Lamers, and the percentage increase is certainly that we've come up with in talking with them is certainly a whole lot better than 2.8%. Basically, it was going to be whatever CPI was, so long as it was between 2.8 and 6% this year. We've renegotiated that to a much more favorable rate for the district. Lamers was more than willing to sit down with us and do that. It is, though, a 1-year contract at the moment for that rate, so we'll have to sit down and look at this again next year. I certainly used the lines that nobody else was getting between 2.8 and 6%, but they were very, very good about sitting down with us and going over that. So to recommend approval of that new contract rate.
Make a motion to approve the contract with Lamers.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Consider approval of 66.03 agreement with Nakusa School District.
This is a 6603 agreement is outside of the normal bounds of open enrollment. They are sometimes necessary for special situations. This is an agreement that would allow us to send a student, or either take in a student or send a student to another school district for, it could be special education services, it could be at-risk services, special services that, again, normally the open enrollment just doesn't handle. In all cases, we look at this as what's in the best interest of the child, and so we'd ask that you would approve 6603 agreement, as that is in the best interest of this particular child.
I would move approval.
Second by Tracy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Opportunity for individual board member comment. Joe?
Nothing this evening.
Yeah.
I would encourage the parents and the citizens of the district to closely monitor the upcoming election. Ask candidates questions about school policy, about their position on vouchers, about their position on fair school funding, their positions on issues that will impact the opportunities available to your children in all school districts. There have been some less than great choices made by some of our elected representatives in the past, and I would hope that this time around, people with a more positive outlook towards education will be elected, and that candidates will be held to task by the voters concerning education issues. So we have 70-odd days before the upcoming election, and there's plenty of time to call and write people who are up for office and ask them what's your position regarding issues that are going to impact my children and their opportunities in our public school.
All right. Tracy? Okay.
I just wanted to, I guess, commend the students that worked at the Port Fun Fest. I saw how hard they worked. They helped me carry my materials for my presentation, and I saw them doing lots of jobs. Very proud of our John Edwards High School and middle school students.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to, on behalf of the board, welcome all the students and all the teachers to another school year, and hope it's a productive one. Establish future board meetings. We have Monday, September 12th, and October would be, when's the annual meeting?
The annual meeting,
24th.
The 10th?
Oh, second, is it the second?
October 10th would be the second.
Yep.
What time is it?
10th would be the-
I will not
That's
be
the-
here on the 10th.
What we ran into last year was, I think we had a couple of people who weren't gonna be able to be there, but it was a couple. I think we had to move it, but if that's it.
That's October 10th?
October 10th is the second Monday, so
Yep.
that gets us
Well,
back
that's
on the
fine.
second
Okay.
Monday schedule.
That's fine. As far as I know, I will be available.
And the 24th would be the annual meeting.
Okay,
That's Monday.
Yep.
yeah.
And that's at 6?
The annual meeting, yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, the budget hearings.
Budget hearing.
It's budget hearing at 5:30 and the annual meeting at 6.
I think that might be
I
what it
believe
is.
that's how it is.
Okay. 5:30 and
All right.
6 p.m. All right,
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
It would be fun.